here today with Jenny Proctor, who is an experienced marketing consultant and host of the Marketing for Introverts podcast. As an introvert and a small business owner, she believes that everyone can find a way to market their business and get more visible in a way that suits them. She's also the author of Marketing for Introverts, which was named Business Self-Development Book of the Year at this year's Business Book Awards. So first of all, yay!
Hello, Alison. Thank you for that.
Congratulations. It's lovely to have you here. I didn't actually hook up with you at the Business Book Awards. I didn't see you there, but did you have a good night?
I did have a good night. I went in with absolutely no expectation at all. So it was fabulous to come away with a shiny trophy that looks like a book. How exciting.
Marvellous. And those trophies they're beautiful, but also they're impossible to take pictures of, aren't they? They just sort of reflect the room back at you. It's yeah.
And fingerprints all over them. But
my goodness, the fingerprints. But hey, it's fine. It's a beautiful, beautiful trophy. Brilliant. So, well, congratulations on the win and welcome to the podcast. And I was really fascinated reading your book about your kind of light bulb moment of identifying your own introvertism. Tell us about that.
Well, many introverts that I speak to, there are a number of different ways that people come to that realization, but there are some common themes. My story is that I always knew that I didn't quite fit in certain situations. So whether that was at university when everybody else wanted to go out and go clubbing a lot, and I just needed to stay home sometimes, not every night, but sometimes. And then moving into a marketing career, and marketing teams are very often kind of creative, enthusiastic, buzzy, energetic kind of teams. And I didn't quite fit that mold. And I'll be honest, Alison, the phrase is, shall we brainstorm that? Let's have an away day. Anything that involves working in open plan offices, all of those just didn't feel like my ideal working environment. They just didn't suit me. But you go along with it because that's that's the rest of the world. That's how the world is working. And you think it's just me. I don't quite fit in this environment. But I'll push through. And then probably late 30s, 40 maybe, I was doing a master's degree, and we were studying personality profiles. And I was in a room with mostly men, mostly kind of corporate employees, and I was in the public sector at that point. And having done the personality profile, I think we were sort of studying the academic relevance or something. It wasn't just a kind of Cosmo quiz moment, but we were studying them, and I came out as very, very kind of hard on the introvert scale, and virtually all the blokes in the room were extroverts, and I thought, this is why I don't quite fit, because I am extreme introvert. And that was the kind of the moment I had a proper name for that slightly uncomfortable feeling. And it took a lot longer than that to realize that was a good thing, and I could work how to how to use that in a positive way. But that was certainly the moment where I had a name for that uncomfortable I don't quite fit feeling.
It's so interesting. When I met MBTI, it was part of my MBA, and I had literally the opposite experience. I'm kind of off the chart extrovert.
Okay.
And I felt slightly ashamed of this. I felt like it would be much more interesting to be an introvert.
Oh, that's really interesting.
I felt like a sort of puppy going, talk to me. So I harbour this sort of introvert envy, and I don't know if that's just your kind of natural MBTI, I want what they've got.
Yeah, maybe
but it just seems to me introverts are sort of deep thinky sort of people.
Well, yes, obviously we are fabulous. but I'd never, I suppose because I spend such a lot of time talking to introverts, I'd never heard that. Nobody's ever said that to me. Oh, I'm an extrovert, and I want to be an introvert. So thank you for that. That was an interesting point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm good with who I am. I don't particularly want to be different. It's just that I have this sense that it's somehow morally inferior being an extrovert. I don't know why.
And that's as an introvert, and those I've spoken to on the podcast and for the book and so on. That's exactly the feeling that introverts have. There's something wrong with. Somebody said to me, I thought I was a rubbish human being. I thought there was something wrong with me. So
Wow.
yeah, isn't it funny? It's nice to know it's not just you, isn't
No,
it? Always everybody
no,
is
it's
feeling slightly like an imposter in the environment.
and I think that's part of what you're saying in the book, isn't it, as well, is that it's not binary. There's lots of different traits that
Yeah,
cut across and
yeah.
condition and qualify. So, and I was absolutely blown away, really, by the sort of taxonomy of introversion that you set out in the book. So, just tell us a little bit about the different types of introverts there are, and particularly what you are.
So, I mean, I think there's lots of different models of introversion, and you can kind of cut it a lot of different ways. I would say that I can be fairly sociable. People say to me, "Well, you're not shy." No, I'm not shy. I mean, they're different things. I can be chatty and sociable in a workplace, but actually, how I do my best work, where I retreat to when I've done my peopling, is a kind of quiet space. It's not a coincidence that I work from home. In the pandemic, when everybody went home to work, and I thought, well, I've been here for a decade already. Thanks very much. So yeah, I would call myself a sociable introvert. Yeah, but there are lots of different models and different academics who've put together kind of different ways of looking at it. But I think the kind of common thing is that, how do you recharge your batteries? We can all go to work, we can all sit in meetings or go to networking events, or whatever it is our professional um, requirements are. But what do you do after that? Are you the person who goes home and sits very quietly? So let me give you an example, Alison. Actually, I was at the Business Book Awards with a very good friend of mine, Kate, who is an extrovert, and it was quite a big evening. There was lots of peopling, lots of chatting. And what did we do after that? I went home and had the quietest weekend of my life. I did not leave the house. I think I may have quietly cleaned the bathroom. Kate went to Ibiza partying. So this is the difference. It's how we recharge our batteries. And for me, I just had to be in the house on my own all weekend. So
If you ever feel the need to clean a bathroom to recover, by the way, I'd
no, I got over
come
that quite
over.
quickly, but
Oh,
but I hear
yeah.
you.
But marketing is an interesting case, isn't it? Because there are
Yeah.
many, many jobs in which it's possible to be an undisturbed introvert, and that's an absolute superpower. Marketing has, as you say, this reputation for party people and brainstorming and lots of sort of activity and lots of relentless marketing and shouting about what it is you've got to sell. How
Yeah.
do you do
And
that as an introvert?
well, and particularly, and where my kind of interest and enthusiasm for the subject came from was, you can work in a corporate marketing environment and be an introvert, and it's not super comfortable, but you can do it. If you are self-employed, if you run your own small business, particularly a service business that is based on your expertise. So I'm thinking about accountants and pensions advisors and surveyors and architects, and those kind of people who've spent a long time studying their expertise. So they're deep experts in what they do, and they step out of the kind of the practice business structure of what they've trained in to do their own thing. Um, and then you have to talk about yourself,
Mm.
because
You have
your
to be
expert, you
visible.
can't say, here's my thing, buy it, because the thing is the expertise in your head. So it's that place of being, having, because it's your business and your livelihood, having to say, come and buy my thing because I'm great at it. Look at all these great things I can do for my clients. And oh my goodness, that's difficult. And I find that quite difficult initially, in my own marketing consultancy. So I thought, I bet I'm not the only person. So
Mm.
yeah, so that was where it came from. Not kind of corporate marketing per se, but that sort of small service business marketing background.
So, how did that glimmer of an idea, that kind of, this is my lived experience, I'm dead sure it's other people's lived experience. How did that translate into such a beautifully structured, by the way, book?
Well, thank you very much. I will, and we'll come back to where I got the inspiration for that beautiful structure, because you might know the inspiration behind that. But um, it started off as a number of conversations, thinking, if that's my experience, I bet it's other people's experience. So I did what every sensible person was doing in 2020 in lockdown, which was, I started a podcast. So I started to have conversations with other introverts, with business owners who were introverts, with marketing experts who also introverts. So lots of kind of conversations, initially, I think I had this idea that there were particular types of marketing that were better things to do. So if you're an introvert, do this, this, and this, and those are the right things to do. And of course, the very first person I interviewed had done a TED talk. And I thought, well, that's not what you would naturally do as an introvert. So perhaps it's more kind of nuanced and complex than that. So the podcast kind of developed those ideas and conversations. And I suppose I came to the feeling that lots of different sorts of marketing are really good for introverts. You've just got to try and find your thing. I mean, video, for example, doesn't feel like it would be a nice place for an introvert to kind of do the marketing, but it's a form of marketing you can do on your own, in your own space, in your own time, when your energy is high. So yeah, that was kind of how the ideas sort of started to develop. And it took a little while from the start of the podcast to think, oh, this could be a book. It's slightly embarrassingly too long before starting the podcast to get to the book, but so the podcast ran for about sort of 2 or 3 years before I even started to think about putting into a book form.
So, what was your original impulse with the podcast? Was it just to connect with people?
Yeah, and as a marketing person, I say to my clients, content marketing is so important. And again, back to that service business, we don't have pictures of our products, so how are we going to demonstrate our expertise? And blogging is great, and video, if you can do that, that's good. And I wasn't very disciplined about putting together my own blogs, but I thought I quite liked the idea of podcasting. I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and I thought, if I have somebody to help me with that, like external accountability. So I found a brilliant podcast editor, somebody who was kind of fun to work with, and I kind of committed to creating a podcast every couple of weeks, and then I had that accountability. So I was creating my own content. So yeah, that's how that's kind of it started to grow as a body of work, conversations, not quite research, but what I mean, that sort of background.
It's sort of his research, though, isn't it? You can't help but have
Yeah,
your thinking deepened and extended, and and there's
yeah.
something there's not that much peopling involved, is there? It's something very intimate and one-to-one about the
Absolutely.
podcasting,
No, it's a
especially.
great way to it's a great medium for introverts to have really deep conversations, which is something we
Yeah,
really like doing. So
yeah.
so
Not
yes, it was.
not wild about the small talk.
Can't do the small talk, saved my life.
Yeah, yeah.
So yes, there was lots of really interesting conversations with really interesting people, which was a great place to start. And then then it became, I need to write a book. You must have this conversation with so many people who say, I've wanted
Oh,
to write a book
absolutely.
since I was a child. Is that a
Yeah.
common thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very common bucket list thing. Yes.
Yes. Well, it was on my bucket list. This is not the book I anticipated writing when I was 8 years old, but
No, it's probably had more unicorns in it, the one you originally
I
intended
think
to see.
I was very kind of Famous Five inspired at that age, and
Yeah.
that didn't translate into the book that I
No.
actually published.
But that I mean, you say quite that. Oh, and then it became a book. What did that look like? How did you organize your thinking and take the material from the podcast and turn it into book form?
So I didn't want to start from a blank page. Couldn't start from a blank page. But over a number of years, I had written a few blog posts. I had handouts and downloads and presentations and things that I'd created in my business, and I had. Some of my podcast episodes had been scripted, where I'd done them, as solo episodes. Others, as I say, were conversations. So I copied and pasted. I spent quite a long time going through my laptop, copying and pasting almost everything that was relevant, and dumped it all into a big Word file. So I started there, and then there was a lot of editing. And I am going to name Ginny, because this was hugely inspiring. But I read. I came across Ginny Carter, who I know is one of your authors, and somebody I was really indebted to. And I read her book, Your Business, Your Book. And she came on my podcast as well, actually, and she was absolutely lovely. So you said about the structure of the book. A lot of that is, you don't have to reinvent these things. There's always somebody with the great advice. And for me, that was Ginny and her structuring. There's a lot of post-it notes going on as well. So it was a combination of that, kind of working out the structure with Ginny's book as my guide, and then
It's
looking
a
at
great guide to
it
have.
is,
Absolutely.
and looking at what content I'd create, and then there were obviously lots of gaps and lots of editing. But it is much easier to start, I think, editing than to sit down at a blank screen and go, what shall I write today? That's hard.
It is hard, and it's less likely to generate something really good than this building on that body of work that you've already done, isn't it? But
Yeah.
what do you did you sort of surprise yourself with the writing? Did you learn anything about yourself through it? Will you do it again?
Well, would I do it again? I'm not sure about that. If I have another idea that needs to find its way into the world, I might. There isn't one at the moment, but never say never. I mean, honestly, I'm a single parent and I'm a marketing consultant. It looked like carving out moments, but I think maybe I had an idea that I would sit Carrie Bradshaw style in my my loft apartment with my Apple Mac, and it didn't work like that. Actually, really, it looked like the kids going off to their dads for the weekend, and me sitting down at 6 o'clock on a Friday night and writing, keeping going, and some months without writing anything at all because there just wasn't the time. So it was, yeah, you have to be very practical, don't you, and fit in writing around other things very often.
And I think that's one of the challenges that business book authors face, is that they are kind of almost by definition, they're business people, and they've got the
Yeah.
full-time job, and it's got to fit around that, which I
Yes.
think is a joy sometimes, because actually the thinking that you do when you're writing feeds into the conversations that you have when you're working, and there's a lovely sort of synergy there when it works.
Yes, absolutely. Now that's true, but also slightly frustratingly, sometimes you'll be doing something in a work context and think, oh, I've written about that, and that's what I've written is not right because I've just spent the last half an hour doing it in a different way. So, but yes, you're right. They do kind of fit together in that way.
And that in the moment is really frustrating, but actually in terms of getting a better book,
Yeah.
I mean,
yes, absolutely. So you kind of I suppose your stuff because you're living it and doing it
exactly.
every day. Yeah.
Which I think it is harder in some ways than taking 3 months off in a beach hut and writing, but
I
I
mean,
think it's also a lot of advantages.
I'm here if you want to test the 3 months off in the beach hut. I'm
Join the
absolutely here
queue.
for test driving that way of writing a book. That sounds like fun. I can't remember who I was reading who said, I went and booked an Airbnb and stayed in an Airbnb for a month, and I thought, well, you clearly don't have two kids.
Yeah, there's lots of love about that, isn't there? But you can snack.
Yeah.
I've done the old Airbnb for the weekend thing, and you have
Okay.
to write because you're paying to go to write. So
Yes.
you
Yes.
create a sort of obligation for yourself, which is quite useful, and you can immerse yourself in a way that is very hard when you're just kind of carving out the odd hour here and there.
Yeah. But the odd hour here and there can also build your book, or you can go back and edit a chapter in an hour. And I think I was going to say it's prioritizing it, and that sort of that whole we all have the same 24 hours in a day thing really annoys me. So I don't want to go down that route necessarily. But there were some days where I thought, well, I'm going to start just by half an hour on the manuscript, and then I'll move on to my work. And sometimes that half an hour would stretch, and sometimes that was enough. So yes, you just got to keep going. But it did take a very long time. It probably took from the moment I said, copying and pasting all that work into the the one document, to saying here is my finished manuscript, was probably 2 years. It didn't come together quickly, and there was a lot of time where I thought, I'm not really a writer because it's just a file on my laptop. You know what I mean? It's not. Yeah, I didn't feel like a writer while I was writing it, if that makes sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense. I hear you. I see you. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
because
no,
because imposter
there'll be a
syndrome,
lot of people listening and nodding.
will there? No, because that sort of followed me all the way into the awards, and I was sitting there thinking, everybody else in the room is a real writer, and I am just, I don't know, I'm just not.
Yeah,
So,
somehow it's different when I write. Yes,
yes, yeah,
it's
quite.
less serious. Yeah, okay.
Yes,
And as soon
exactly
as you
that.
say it out loud, you realise just how bonkers that is. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. As I said it then, I thought,
hilarious.
oh.
Now, Jenny, I always ask my guests for their best tips. So, for somebody who is at the start of that 2-year journey, or however long it's going to take them, what would you say? What did you wish you'd known then?
Um, I mean, I think it's not starting from the blank page. What have you already got? What have you already written or produced? Or have you been training on something that you can start with those training slides? Or what is the thing? Because if you, yeah, sitting down at a blank screen is not helpful. But if you are writing a book about your business or related to your business, you will almost certainly have that material somewhere. So start with all those things, and yeah, the structure, as we've said, the structure is, I could have gone off on all sorts of random tangents, but trying to keep and this is a very marketing kind of thing, but trying to keep the reader in mind. What do they need from this? How do I need to kind of signpost them through my content? So all of those things feel like kind of useful
I
tips to
think
bear in
that's
mind.
Yeah, and that point about thinking about your book, not just as an author, but as a marketer, because
Mm,
it's all about how it's going to be used by the consumer. It's all about
yeah.
the how you frame the ideas and stuff. Yeah, that's genius. Yeah, I love that. And I think your point about don't start from a blank page is
Mm,
really helpful because it's so intimidating. And don't also, I think the opposite pit to fall into is taking something that you wrote 3 years ago and used to think and sort of sticking to it too slavishly. So I think it makes a great springboard, but
okay. Yeah.
yeah, don't sort of, you can use it to think forward into your topic rather than just thinking about repurposing stuff that you've done in the past.
That's a fair point, because you need to bring some, just for your own interest and enthusiasm. I think you need to bring something
Mhm.
new to it as well, don't you? Otherwise, it sort of feels stale almost before you've published it. So yeah, no, all good points.
And I'm going to ask you also to recommend as a book. I wonder if I know what it is, or it might be something different. I don't know. What book would you recommend that people
Well,
listening
I mean, there
should
are
read?
so many. I can see your bookshelves. You can't see mine, but they are equally weighted down. So this is going to come as no surprise to all your introvert listeners. But if you haven't read Quiet by Susan Cain, it's not a very easy book to kind of share in front of a screen because the typography is white on white. But Quiet by Susan Cain, it was published in 2012, so I'm not sharing anything particularly new there. But it is. It's brilliant. It's not a kind of easy kind of snack in a weekend kind of read. It takes quite a lot, but that is a brilliant book. But from a marketing point of view, and if you're a business owner thinking, yes, I know I need to create content for my business, but I don't know what, Marcus Sheridan's book They Ask You Answer is also really helpful. And actually, when you've produced all the blog posts and all the content that Marcus Sheridan has suggested that you do, and he's very kind of detailed in why that works and how that works and what you need to be writing about, then you have the basis for your own book, don't you? Because actually, if you've written all the blog posts in that way, then you've got that body of work to start with. So there's two.
Yeah,
Is that cheating?
brilliant.
Sorry.
Well, it's three really because there's Ginny's as well.
There
No, but it's
is,
not just you.
absolutely.
Yeah, we do love the recommendations. And Marcus Sheridan has that fabulous quote about good content being the best salesperson in the world, doesn't he? Which I love.
Yes, and there's a great quote, and I've got a bookmark in it, but the percentage of people who have already made a buying decision before they get to your website. So people aren't going to pick up the phone. Sorry, not before they get to your website, before they contact you. So I think 70% of people, I won't be able to find the quote now, but 70% of people, I think, is his number of people who've already made a decision about working with you based on your content before they contact your business. So actually, if you're thinking, why do I need to bother with, great social media posts or great website content? That is why, because that's what people are making a decision on, not the conversation they have with you when they get
Once
when
they've
they
picked
phone
up the
you,
phone.
because
Yeah,
they're not going to pick up the phone if they don't like what they see. So yeah.
yeah. So it's such a profound point. And Jenny, if people want to find out more about you, more about the book, more about the podcast, where should they go?
I guess the best place to find me is on LinkedIn, but you need to look for me with it's Jenny Proctor with an E. You've got to spell my name right first, because I don't spell it in the normal way, and I appreciate that's not always easy, and there are some great Jenny Proctors out there, but they are not me. So Jenny Proctor with an E, and you'll find me on
Listen,
LinkedIn.
Alison Jones here. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yes, yeah.
But don't worry, because I will put that link to your profile up on the show notes at
Thank you.
extraordinarybusinessbooks.com, along with the transcript of this conversation. So people can access the content any way they like, and they can go straight to that link.
Thank
Amazing.
you.
Thank you so much. And I'll put the link to the podcast up there as well.
Thank you.
Be great. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. Particularly delighted that Jenny's book featured. So because I
Yeah,
think it's such a great book, and
it
yeah,
really
I can.
is.
You do want to sort of press it into everybody's hands, really, don't you? So it's
Yes,
good.
everybody
Nice when
should
people
read
do
it.
that. Do it for me. Yeah, everybody should read it. Marvelous. Well, congratulations again on the win, Jenny,
Thank
and
you.
thank you so much for your time today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.